And when I think of stress, I do think about exercise too. And this, as exercise is just an example where when you're young, you can get away with working out for 2 hours.
Yeah.
You've got your adrenals doing their job and your ovaries doing their job, but then when your ovaries are dying, your adrenals start to take over. So we're becoming more stressed, burned out at the same time. And then when you're burned out, the same stressor seems a lot bigger.
Yes.
So, right? So that
Yes.
perceived stress. So can you go into what is going on there with the fact that, yes, us women have 1,000 things on our plate and we multitask and we've got our kids and our husbands and our elderly parents that are needing our attention too, and then taking care of ourselves and seeing the weight gain, seeing the hair fall out, seeing our mind, where did I park my car? That's all really stressful, but then the perceived stress of it is increased as well.
Yeah.
So what is going on there?
It's interesting. I was reading an article yesterday about our brain, and we have a neurotransmitter in our brain. So a hormone in our brain. It's called GABA, GABA. And it is our main, what's called an inhibitory hormone. It calms us down. It puts the brake system to what's going on in our brain. Now we need a gas system because we need to learn, we need to remember, we need to deal, we need to handle, but at the same time, we need to brake to counter that. So I'm reading this article and it's talking about GABA and how as women transition into menopause, they lose on some of the stimulation to their brake system. So one of our big hormones in our body is called progesterone. And when progesterone breaks down, one of its big breakdown products goes up to the brain and nudges GABA. It says, okay, go be a brake system. Go calm her down. Go help her sleep. Go help her not snap. Go help her have patience. That's what GABA does. But if we go through perimenopause and we don't make as much progesterone as we used to, which is very common, we start losing that ability, then all of a sudden we lose out on the ability of a very strong brake system. And women often say this. They often say, oh my gosh, I have no patience anymore. I am really snappy. I don't handle stress like I used to. Everything is a mountain when in fact it probably should just be a molehill. All right. And so we get this, we get frustrated because we're constantly comparing ourselves to the younger version of us. The old me used to handle this. The old me could have 14 balls in the air. The old me didn't forget things. The old me wouldn't have gotten stressed out like that. The old me wouldn't have reacted like that. And it's acknowledging, yes, and you're making this transition. So it's not fair to compare you to the old you. You're a new you. Like we're moving through like a caterpillar to a butterfly. And so by knowing that this hormone, this like one example of how our perceived stress can go way, way up, can at least help us remember, like once we know as women, like the who, the what, the where, the when, the why, how, it's easier for us. So when we do overreact or stress does happen, we're like, oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Sarah and Carrie were talking about the brake system and I've lost the brake. I have no brake on my mouth. I have no brake on my brain. I have no brake on everything. Like, okay, this makes sense now. Now, obviously there are things we can do to support this, but this article just full on said, yeah, perimenopausal, menopausal women, this is you. You're losing your brake system. And I thought,
Yeah.
yes, women can relate.
Well, think about your elderly parents. I actually was joking to my mother-in-law. Thank God I'm very close to her and I can have this conversation with her. I was talking about one of her friends, and I said, "Yeah, she has no filter." And I said, "Actually, you don't have a filter anymore either." And she used to be the sweetest lady ever, and she has no filter. My mom has no filter, and it's this, you just let it out.
Yeah.
And hopefully at least you're going to know where they stand,
Yeah.
what their opinion is. And I always tell my kids, I said, please don't let me do that. But it makes sense because we do have all of this on our plate, and then we try to overcompensate for the stress, because like exercise is a great stress reliever and has been for so many women, right?
Right.
And not just for stress, but oh, now I'm starting to gain weight. What should I do? I'm going to control my food. I'm going to shrink it down. I'm going to work out more. Okay, why is the tire around my belly getting bigger? It should be getting smaller. What's going on there?
Oh my gosh, the stress. And going back to the perceived stress, we have this little area of our brain called an amygdala, which I actually think is really fun to say, amygdala. But the amygdala is a, think of it like a command center that can determine, it's a fear-based command center. So when you're feeling stressed out, when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're feeling guilt or shame or fear, this command center gets activated. And because we have now 40, 50, 60 years of experience with this command center, coupled with less of a break, it can kick off faster uh, than it did maybe in your 30s or even in your 20s. And so, what it does is it runs to your adrenal glands, which sit above your kidneys, and kicks off the stress system. So, not only do we not have this break system, but we have this command center that's trigger happy. That's like fear, 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 fear,
Mhm.
stress, 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 stress. And whereas before we, like I said, we could handle it and now we can't. So as you said, we go to compensate. Okay, I'm going to control more. I'm going to control the portion of my food. I'm going to exercise more and figure this out. Well, now the body just gets the reinforcement of, oh no, now we're shrinking on food. There go my nutrients. And now we're running or we're treadmilling, we're ellipticaling, we're doing the hours of hot yoga or the Peloton bike or lifting or whatever it is, which just becomes more of a stress. So like think of your stress availability to handle stress like a bucket. And instead of draining away from the bucket, we're just adding more intensity to the bucket. So instead of going for an easy yoga flow or an easy walk or cutting back, but adding more nutrients, instead the body's like, oh my gosh, this feels stressful. So it's going to perpetuate the cycle. Now, cortisol itself can cause blood sugar issues, glucose issues, insulin issues, inflammation issues. And it's helpful to a point. I need cortisol. I want to be able to deal in a stressful situation or avoid a car accident or handle an angry email, but I don't want it chronic. I don't want it all the time. And when it's all the time, our fat cells see that and our fat cells can then get bigger. We can get more cortisol right then and there in our fat cells, which then of course only accentuates the glucose and accentuates the insulin issues. And now we have the spare tire in that area as opposed to losing the spare tire, which was probably our original goal.
Exactly. I think about when I used to do hot yoga strength classes, there was this group of women that would come straight from Orange Theory to the
Oh,
class.
yeah.
And were they physically fit and amazing? Was that the person that I was looking to, like, I want that body? No, they had the tire.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually just talking to one of my best friends who's starting to eat more and losing weight.
Mm-hmm.
And she was talking about someone else who's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But she goes, Sarah, I was with her for a week and she doesn't eat. And, the body's talking to itself and it's in survival mode. And if you're in survival mode and your bank account has $20, how much money are you going to spend? Right? It's the
Yep.
same thing. And there's this body talk and it is so much smarter than you are. You can't override it. Right. And I'll just mention this. I have talked a little bit about my liver issues on my podcast. I had a viral issue. My enzymes were through the roof. My iron was through the roof. Ferritin was high. I used to tend towards anemia. And here all of a sudden now I have this going on. Well, why? Because my liver's not working. Right. Okay. So my cortisol was high. I don't eat a lot of sugar. My blood sugar was high. My
Mm-hmm.
A1C is higher. So if your liver's backed up and stressed, the cortisol is going to go up. Even if it's a physical stressor versus just I'm stressed mentally over what's going on in my life. Your body doesn't know the difference. It also doesn't know if you really are running from a tiger or if you just got in a fight with your husband. So it doesn't know. It's going to react the same way and it's going to shut things down. And your hormones are also going to get out of whack and they're going to suffer as well.
Right.
So with all that being said, women out there, you want to make sure you're doing the lifestyle things to manage your stress, the meditation, the gratitude, the saunas, whatever that means to you, the walking your dog. I always walk my dog at night and I literally feel my whole day go. And I actually sleep so much better, and sleep is a huge issue.